Oh yeah. So as you guys know, I'm a big fan of guys who map caves, and when I started, Crash was very supportive and just talking to me about it, showing me the ropes, talking to me about what's it like to be a good project caver. And so hopefully we can get him switched over. Do you got to quit sharing, Alan? There we go. And now, Jim, if you just want to share your screen at the bottom, should see a big green button. There we go. Thanks for coming tonight, Crash. I'll let you take it away.
First of all, I have to unmute. There we go. Okay. So Josh has actually been working with me. Oh, wait, move the window from the shared application. I don't know what's going on here. All right. Can you guys see that, or is it messed up? I have this weird.
We can see it, and it looks like you just need to grab it and drag it someplace off to the side. Oh, it's disappearing as long as you're not touching it.
There you go. As long as I'm not touching it. Okay, let me go back a minute. Okay, let me move my cursor. That might help. No. It's not letting me do that. Huh. I haven't had that problem before. All right, there it goes. It's fading. Cool. Well, Josh has actually been helping me a little bit on the cartography for the project. Rachel's actually been here helping survey some of the things. I can't get that to go away. I don't know what's going on.
Hey, Jim, maybe try backing out of it and resharing.
Let me, okay. Let me get out of full screen view here first of all. Maybe that'll help. Okay. There you go. How's that?
Perfect.
Okay. So, this isn't Watla. This isn't Cheve. That's the standard disclaimer. This isn't an area with vast cave potential that's going to be the next long, deep cave system, and you're going to hear about it in National Geographic or anything. But that said, it's an area that I've been going to for quite a few years. Started out with just a few caves that were known, mapped by some Germans actually back in 1985. And we are now up to like 240 caves in the area that we know of, most of which have been mapped. The reason I go, whoops, stop that. The reason I go there is because it's relatively close for me. It's a day drive basically from Austin. It's about 7 or 8 hours, depending on how long of delay we have at the border. Pretty simple to get there. We just hit on the interstate, drive to the border, boom, you're in Mexico. And it's in a really cool area. Sorry, I keep doing that. Where the Sierra Madre Oriental, which is this big northwest southeast trending mountain range, it abruptly starts turning east-west here in this part of the range. So you get what we call the cross ranges. And you can see it's the typical folded, valley and ridge kind of terrain, except that what you're seeing here in the mountains is almost entirely limestone. There are some quaternary clastics and a few other odds and ends, but most of the mountains are limestone, and pretty darn good limestone at that. This is sort of an overview of the area. You can see the town of Monterey up in the top, and you see Saltillo over on the west side, and some of the known caves that are marked there. The star is basically the town of Laguna de Sanches, where we base everything from. And this is kind of what it looks like. It gives you a little an idea. You got some elevation in places. There's mountains well over 9,000 feet. Um, the town itself sits at right around 5,000 something, so it's almost a mile. You get really interesting terrain too. And the majority of the area is a national park. It's the Cumbres de Monterrey, the Mountains of Monterrey National Park. But national parks in Mexico aren't like national parks here, where you actually have protection. In Mexico, it's basically just a line on the map. And there are communities within the national parks and people in there doing the things they've done for generations, farming and ranching and cutting timber and growing crops and having their cows and goats graze and whatever it is that they're doing. So I'm not sure really what the national park status entails. They do put up a few little signs and they have some touristic areas that they try to attract people to, but you'll never, ever, ever, ever see a park ranger. There's no signs when you enter or leave. You wouldn't know a national park unless I told you it was a national park, basically. But one of the reasons that it is designated as such is because of these birds. I'm sorry it's a crappy picture, but they're kind of elusive. This is the maroon-fronted parrot. It's an endemic species in the mountain. There's only about 300 breeding pairs estimated right now. They eat pine seeds and they nest in cliff face crevices. So, it's perfect habitat for them. But their numbers are declining due to poaching, due to human encroachment, due to timbering and various other things, even though it's a national park. So let's go to Laguna de Sanches. It's a pretty cool place. This is the Laguna. And if you look at this thing on a map or an air photo or Google Earth or whatever, you say, wow, that's one damn big sinkhole. And it sure looks like it. It's this big enclosed valley. And that's really what brought the German researchers over there. They got a hold of some early maps that came out of the area and said, wow, this is cool. And they were cavers and karst researchers, and they went and did a couple of master's theses on the area. However, they were very disappointed to find out that it's truly not a sinkhole. Even though it looks like a sinkhole and acts like a sinkhole, it's not. I'll tell you why in a little bit. But being in this harsh mountainous terrain, it's almost all rock and some oaks and pines and agaves. There's a lot of soil there, so it's a big agricultural zone, and you can see that the smart people don't actually build their houses on the floor of the Laguna. They build it up on the slopes. There are a few city slickers that have bought property and built a house down there, and those houses do tend to get underwater from time to time. At the far end of the Laguna, here we are, this is the town of Laguna de Sanches in the foreground. At the far end is this cool, iconic mountain. It's called Cerro del Muerte, the Dead Man Mountain. And if you kind of look at it, I don't know if I can get my mouth, there we go. You kind of got a head, neck, chest, toes over here of a corpse laying on top of the mountain where it gives the mountain its name. But you also look at this and you see all these limestone layers and you say, wow, this is a big anticlinal mountain. And if you project these layers up here, they must have gone like here. This is already over 9,000 feet. So this mountain originally must have been, somewhere in the 2-mile high range. It would have been incredible before erosion has carved it into its present shape. So there's a little close up, give you kind of a look at it. Yes, folks, that's all limestone. One of the other industries besides farming is the production of a very, very, very fine mezcal. There's a couple of distilleries right there at the edge of town. Everything's double distilled, nice smoky, peaty flavor. It's some good stuff. Of course, you can get some rot gut if you want rot gut, but we always come back with multiple liters of mezcal. In fact, one trip we almost bought a 40-liter jug. They gave us a really good price on it, and I just said no, because that would just prove I'm an alcoholic and I'm not taking that much liquor back across the border. The area has been known, obviously, for quite some time. There's at least 2 areas where we find some pictographs. One of them is a pretty popular climbing area, and the area is getting defaced by tourists and rock climbers. But the other area, as far as I know, the only people up there have been goat herders, as well as a few errant cavers that have found it. This is our base of operations when we're in the area. It's a nice little house owned by a friend of mine, which we're probably buying, just because it is so damn convenient to pull in and not have to pitch tents in the middle of the night. It's a good base camp. Got a nice little kitchen, a couple of bedrooms. Needs a new roof. I was going to work on that this year and last year, except that the stupid pandemic got in the way, and haven't been down since January of 2020. Can't wait to get back. I'm going to get my second shot soon, and hopefully I'll have a trip down there this fall sometime. Our remote camps are pretty cool too. You got this nice, pine needle forest floor, very soft, cushy. You can drive right to it, obviously. So we can take a bunch of gear, food, tents, whatever we want. And it's caves are just walking distance. So it's pretty nice. We've also been collaborating a lot with Mexican cavers from Monterey area. There's a pretty active group out of Monterey Tech. Obviously, they're not all students, but it started out as a student grotto, and it retains the name just like a lot of other grottos around the country here. And these guys are pretty hardcore. They're very active, do a lot of things, and they've been really good for helping with landowner relations in areas and doing some logistical planning for us as well. So every time we go down, we try to invite them, include them, and they usually can only come for a weekend, even though it's their backyard. They're all working, and it's hard for them to get away. So we'll see them for a couple of days where they'll cave hard, party hard, and then go home. So we've been here in all seasons. We've been here spring, summer, winter, fall. It's really nice on a hot summer day when you've been camping out for 4 or 5 days and you stink to high heaven and you got cave dust all over and everything. Go jump in the mountain stream. Be warned that this stream is still frigid. It's only like 50 degrees even in high summer, but it's still great to get the stank off. Fall is really nice. There's, you get some good color because of the hardwoods there, the oaks and so on. Winter, we actually do get snow up in the peaks. We had snow when we were down there in 2020, in January 2020. Lasted a few days and just makes the mountains look even more beautiful. And, rain, fog, sleet, you name it, we've done it. This is hiking through the middle of a fog storm. Because you're such high elevation, you often get the clouds rolling in from the Gulf of Mexico and just kind of get stuck in the mountains. So the weather can be bad at times. But even my kiddo there, he's been down there a couple of times and he takes all in stride. He loves going and he'd love to go back someday. We even weathered a hurricane one summer. We went down. Weather was looking good. The forecast wasn't bad. A little bit of rain towards the end of the week we were going to be there. However, hurricane shifted path, went way inland, Hurricane Alex, and dumped 36 inches of rain on us in a week. Caused all kinds of damage. We got stuck. The roads turned into soup. The road we drove in on us, you kind of see it in the background right here. And now you see it, now you don't, because it's buried by a landslide. It was also, there was down trees, boulders that moved, stream flooded and washed out parts of it. There was no getting out from where we were camped. We actually had to pack up everything, put them in our vehicles, leave them for a couple of months and hike out over top of one of the mountains until we could get cell service and eventually get a ride into town and take a bus back home, waiting for them to fix the roads so we can go back and, retrieve our vehicles and our possessions. This is why it's called Laguna de Sanches, because during those epic rains, it does flood. There is a drain at the bottom of this area here. There's another cave at the top with water in it. And here's the town along this little upland. And the reason that's there is because this is actually landslide debris. It's a natural dam that has blocked the valley, allowing all that sediment to build up. So it looks like a poye, a big giant sinkhole, but it's just a pseudo poye. It looks like one, acts like one, but not one. Sorry. This was the scene in Monterey during that flood. All the rain we were getting in the mountains. I mean, we were at the head of the catchment area, and all those streams converged into larger rivers. And this is this Rio Santa Maria, which is normally bone dry, just gravel. That bridge is normally 30 feet above the riverbed. And you can see the water is actually overtopping the bridge. Highways got washed out, overpasses, everything, you know, untold millions of dollars of damage in the city of Monterey itself. So yeah, we weren't getting out the way we came in. But it can be lovely. We don't get to see water in the Laguna very often, and it's a nice treat when it does happen. And like I say, all those silly city people that have built houses down there, well, they wish they hadn't. The vegetation is cool, and this is one of the reasons I like going down here. You know, being a biologist and everything, I love the caves, I love the karst, I love seeing all the neat vegetation. You got this cool agave oak pine forest everywhere, exposed karst everywhere you look. You know, this is a typical scene. You also got a lot of epiphytes in the trees, bromeliads and ferns, et cetera, et cetera. But it makes for fairly easy ridge walking. Yes, it's kind of rugged, but you can see things. They're not obscured by underbrush, which is really cool. And in fact, I think things are going to be even easier on our fall trip because there's been a big giant forest fire that's been raging down there the last couple of weeks. I'm pretty sure they have it under control and almost out now, but it's burned off a couple of tens of thousands of acres of those mountainsides. This is the Camatera Plateau. Again, I'm just kind of giving you an idea. There's only one family that lives out here. It's a fairly short as the crow flies drive from Laguna de Sanches itself from the town. It's a few miles. But it takes about an hour or so to get there because you're on old logging roads and they're so bad. You cross the stream about 7 times. You have to climb out of the stream up onto this little plateau here. But once you get there, there's a lot of good stuff. And we break this up into a couple of areas. Here's the little town. Here's the Laguna again for reference. There's an area up here we call Llano Grande. It's a big flat area, kind of like the Laguna, but it's a higher elevation. There's Mesa del Barro over here, which has got a bunch of fairly crappy caves. We have Mesa Colorado, which has got a lot of good stuff and some good potential. We've got 40 or so caves up there. And then you've got the Camatera Plateau. The vast majority of caves are there. There's a kind of an eastern extension of that that's called Cugujon. It has a whole bunch of stuff. We've only had 2 or 3 trips out there. Still a lot of potential there to find new things. And then across this big arroyo, comes down through here, is another smaller plateau called Mesa Seca, which has a lot of stuff. We've only had a few trips over there as well. So one of these days, you know, we'll go back and do a little more extensive work, but it requires camping just because the commute from town to here is pretty tedious. Okay, so scenery. Did I say scenery? I'll probably say this half dozen times or so during the talk. I love the scenery. I love big limestone. I love the karst. You got some big walls. You don't usually find caves on this steep stuff, though. It has to be a little flatter for the water to collect and actually go underground. But it is beautiful. There's neat stuff. This is one of the riverbeds. See the cool where the cool clouds are. I mean, just neat things. Big limestone. Lots and lots of limestone. And you get up at high elevation, you can look out over these valleys and you can see, I mean, it's just, you know, it goes on and on and on. To our knowledge, nobody has ever checked these ridges for caves because they're just so damned inaccessible. even from, I mean, there is some little road that comes in down here, but to get to the top of this is basically a day's death hike. Everything is steep, covered in loose rock, spiny plants, all kinds of mean, nasty things waiting to get you. Okay, here's the town of Laguna again. Some cool fog rolling in. Another neat anticlinal ridge here. The road and stream actually cut through this valley, cut right through the ridge there. And from the base of the road cut where the stream is to the top is roughly 1,000 feet straight up. There's a cool fault scarp that runs along the ridge over here. Some neat geology, and just, pretty stuff. Really cool. So let's take a little area by area tour here. I won't dwell on these too long. We'll go pretty fast. I mentioned these names already. So near town, actually, you can see this cave from the house. We've been up there a couple of times. One of the locals actually lugged this concrete statue up into it, and it is a real death. I mean, you're pulling yourself hand over hand with bushes to get up to this thing. We made the death hike up there, and they also lugged a solar powered light to light it at night. So you can see this thing from a long ways from the town. It's bizarre. Doesn't go back very far. It's just a little shelter, a couple entrances. You can kind of see it's in this soft marly layer. So not a lot of potential, but you can see it. A couple other caves, again, we just drive right to them. Some of them are vertical. Actually, most of the stuff in this whole Laguna de Sanches area is vertical, and it's not tag vertical. I mean, there's not great big old shafts and beautiful pits. It's not even Mexico vertical, but it is vertical. You got to have your skills up for just about all the caves in the area.
I'd say about half of our stuff was free climbable, though, for like those of us who are a little more spry. Because even some of the stuff that I did the first year I went out, I was free climbing it this last time I went out.
Some are free climbable, but free climbing a 25-meter pit is a little hairy at times, and it's better to be on rope just to be safe.
Oh, for sure.
So I think this slide's out of order. I'm not sure, but this is actually the logging road on the way to the Camatera Plateau. But right now we're heading to Llano Grande. There we go. And again, there's a big apple orchard up in this llano, this big flat area, because there's soil there. There's a trail that goes up there, and people walk up there to check their apples and collect agaves for tequila and so on and so on. So handful of caves there, some really neat stuff. The biggest system in the whole area is this Marcelo Ramirez, which connects to Arrow Cave and Owl Feather. There's multiple entrances here. It's very complex, and we haven't finished that yet, but we're getting there. You get there, I mean, there's a nice sign pointing the way. You go down the main road, see this little sign, 6 families, 25 inhabitants, and you go up to the very end of the road, which you better have good traction to get to the end of the road. Park at the last house, talk to the neat little old lady, Paulita, and then just start hiking from there. It's another kilometer or so to the cave, pretty much straight up. But there's this awesome rock outcrop partway up that makes a nice rest stop and photo stop, and you get a really great view of the town and the fault scarp and the valleys and everything else. It's a Kodak photo spot for sure. And I like plants, so I'm going to have various pictures of plants, which there's I don't know, a dozen or more species of cacti in the area and various other cool things. So this is the Mesa Colorado area. This is one of the very first areas that we went to and started finding caves other than the 3 caves we knew of. We were out mist netting bats one night way down here in the valley, and one of the farmers walked by and said, "Hey, do you know about the big cave up on the hill there with bats in it?" We said, "No." So we said, "Well, we've got to come back and find it." And so we made another trip, went back down there, hiked up from where we were netting, which later on we found out there's actually a road that comes into this, and we didn't have to hike straight up the damn hill. So finding that road was a game changer, and we've had multiple camps up here. Again, we found a whole pile of caves. It tends to get really foggy again, but it's pretty neat stuff. Some tillandsia. This is the very first cave we came up when we came up over the edge of this hill from the valley. This is a cave of Mesa, Colorado. Very clever name because it was the only one we knew of at the time.
Do you have any LiDAR to help you out?
The LiDAR down there is very poor. It's only like 20-meter resolution. So we do have it. I have it, but it doesn't find even the biggest entrances. So we've, besides GPSing the caves and mapping the caves, we're also tagging the caves. One of our goals is to produce an AMCS bulletin. That's Association for Mexican Cave Studies about this area, and produce a big GIS type map that we can give to the local community leaders, so that they know that if somebody stumbles upon an entrance, they'll know which cave it is and how long it is and deep it is. They'll have all our data, the map and everything. Or if it doesn't have a tag and they don't know, it looks new, then okay, boom, it's new. And we can go back down someday and follow up on that. But we want to give them basically a roadmap to the caves in their area. And like I say, everything's photo documented. We collect, invertebrates. We do the geologizing and everything else we can while we're there. We're trying to gather as much data as possible. This is a very interesting cave, one we found on our, well, we didn't find it. We got into it on our last trip. This was a little, not even head-size hole in the bedrock that the person that found it dropped some rocks down there and said they rattled for 6 seconds. So it became known as Six Mississippi's Pit, or Seis Mississippi's in Spanish. And we went down with some big tools and enlarged it enough to open it up, and got into it. And it goes. It's actually going towards 2 other caves. So it looks like the possibilities for connection are going to be very good. Unfortunately, the trip I made was soon after my knee replacement surgery, so I wasn't doing any vertical on that trip, and I was the only sketcher in the whole group, so there was no survey done. We have to go back and actually map this to find out how close it gets to the other caves and where the possible connections may be, and see what we can do. But it'd be nice to have a cool little system up there. Okay, now moving back over the pass. Sorry, that one picture was way out of line, but crazy switchback road. We get to Mesa Seca, Mesa Colorado, and Cugajon over here. The blue lines are just, of course, just track logs, and the red dots are caves and sinks and everything else. Whoops, I did it again, sorry. So this is the Mesa Colorado Plateau. Pretty big flat area. One thing I'll mention about the geology here is that, like that landslide material where the town is, most of these big flattish blocks of limestone are displaced chunks of mountain that have, there's some mass wasting, and big hunks of mountainside have just broken off and slid down into their current position and be re-cemented. So even though you have good bedrock and it's really solid, takes bolts well, roads well, everything looks good, it just doesn't, it's not in its original position where it was originally formed. So moving on, looks a lot like this. A lot of limestone. It's a little blurry. Sorry about that. Here's Geraldo's town or house again. This is this little family compound. He's cleared some land. He's got cows and goats and pigs and chickens and horses and you name it. He's got his own little homestead there. He's raised 6 kids out there all by himself. Guy has a 6th grade education. That's it. But his family's healthy and happy, and he's doing quite well for himself out there. And he's become a great friend of ours. He shows us caves. We, every once in a while he'll ask us to bring him something down from the States that we can. And we say, okay, sure, no problem. So we do that. We've known him. I've watched his kids grow up and get married and move off. So it's been kind of neat. And again, here's a shot of our remote camp. Very nice place. Lovely, beautiful scenery. And there's holes, some holes are small, but you know, you never know what's under the leaf litter and the roots. So we push them. Some are a little bigger. Some are bigger, more obvious, you know. I think Rachel sent me this picture actually.
Yeah.
This is one cave they mapped.
Yeah, that was up on La Comatera with I think that's Brian that's sketching and Jane.
Yeah, fun little cave.
Yeah.
Some of the entrances are, you know, real big and obvious. You could easily lose a cow in them. And this is the biggest one of all. This is, yeah, this is Infierno de la Camatera, the hell of Camatera. It's a 55-meter drop. It's the only remotely tag-like thing we have in the whole area. Big open air pit.
It's such a cool pit.
Yeah, it's a cool cave. So I'll show more photos of it. This is, you know, obviously looking out. Sunlight shaft coming in. I mean, it's pretty. Okay, end of that cave. Some of the caves do have cool formations and cool colors. You know, that is not enhanced or any kind of weird filter or anything. The colors are actually reddish and blackish. Sorry, I can't get rid of that. It looks like it's fading and then it comes back. Oh, okay. You know, obviously, I just touched a button. I didn't even hit the mouse. Obviously, there's been some kind of complicated geologic history in these. A lot of areas do have a lot of breakage, natural breakage, whether that's from clay shrinkage or tectonic activity or whatever, we don't know. Okay, that's not yellow. That's an artifact of the light. Sorry. But, you know, some of them are just full of cave cancer. You know, it just kills the cave. They don't go anywhere. Some of these things might actually even be shields that are all overgrown. Not sure. That is almost certainly a shield in the background of this one. And yeah, that's natural colors. And that's natural colors. So there's cave cancer. You know, if you like that kind of stuff, if you go in a cave for pretty things, we have. It all tends to be fairly dry though. You don't have a lot of live active caves because this is high in the mountains. There's not, you know, streams rushing through them or anything. So some of these are, you know, very old fossil caves. And I know that thing's so annoying. Move this window away from the shared application. I can't do it. Sorry. And cool critters too.
That window's not draggable at all, Jim?
I can't figure out how to drag it. There it goes. Okay, so anyhow, so we're biologizing, like I said. You know, every cave we go into, and you know, it's all documentation. The caves, you rarely see somebody in a cave suit in these caves. They tend to be 55 degrees, but they're warm. Oh wait, maybe that did it.
Man, we're out of them in like an hour, usually at the worst. I mean,
yeah, they're all relatively small. They're dry for the most part. They're warm, even in the winter. So this is a Western big-eared bat. It's got its ears rolled back because it's, you know, hibernating. It's a cliff chirping frog. Yes, you do have a few stingy things, but they're rare. We hardly ever see them in the caves. Harvestmen, of course, are everywhere. This is a whip scorpion, a vinegaroon. Neat animals. We've never seen one in a cave, but sometimes we find them under rocks on the surface near caves. That long appendage on the back will actually squirt out acetic acid. That's its defense, hence the name vinegaroon. They look worse than they are. They're actually quite harmless. Various kinds of lizards around there too. Neat looking beetles. Acorn woodpeckers. If you don't know what these are, they actually cache these acorns. They drill holes in a tree and shove an acorn into a tight fitting hole and save it for later. So kind of neat. Neat fungus, etc. So okay, so moving on to the next topic after plants and things. Sorry, I got to get a few obligatory plant pictures. I'm a cactophile. I like cactus. I have a big collection. So I always take pictures.
Did you put a picture of your swirly cactus in there?
I don't think so. I don't think I got one of those. bromeliads, ferns, et cetera, et cetera. So we survey, and this is the part Josh has been waiting for because one of his maps is in here. So this is Inferno again. This is that 55-meter pit. Basically just slopes down to one big open room. It's formed along a fault, which is what these dashed lines represent. It's also a very, very important bat cave. It's one of the northernmost localities for Leptonicterus nivalis, which is one of the nectar feeding bats. They're pollinating agaves, basically. So without these bats, you would have no tequila. There's also a smaller colony of fringed myotis in there. It's a Western species. You don't get those in Tennessee either. And, you know, some of the caves are small. Okay, done. We mapped it, move on. But a lot of them are, you know, more vertical, kind of cool. A lot of these tend to be fissure type caves just because of the geology, because a lot of this stuff is formed in these landslide masses. They have a tectonic initiation. There was a crack in the rock from the movement, and water has subsequently moved into that crack. So it's not just natural jointing from mountain building processes. These are, you know, violently made cracks from landslides. Different mechanisms, something I hadn't really seen before. So a lot of these have these very narrow plan views, but they're fairly deep and complex in profile. And here's one of Josh's maps. Look at that. This was a fun cave. Yeah, we actually free climbed all this up into here, but you could not free climb the entrance. It's one of the deeper caves, and I'd really like to go back there sometime because the mapping team just did this sealing out of sight thing. Now that we have much better lights than we did back in 1997, it would be cool to go in there and see if there's any leads that we could possibly get into and see if this thing extends on out of the picture here somewhere. Yeah, Josh drafted that one for us too. OML, it's one of the longer. This was the big bat cave that the farmer originally told us about when we got to see him. There aren't that many bats in it though, however. A lot to him, I guess. Little summary here. Showed you some pictures, some maps, etc. We've got more maps. There's actually a website where I've got all this stuff. All the survey notes are dumped on there. Maps in progress, maps that we've completed and everything. So we're up to 224 caves, the actual caves that we know of, and have mapped most of those, except for a handful of FROs, for the record only. In Tennessee talk, that's non-qualifiers. Okay, they're small. We put them in, you know, on the map and everything, and we keep track of them in case somebody does go and dig them out or whatever. But we see them, we note them, boom, that's it. We still have, you know, 39, 40 caves that we need to get out there and actually, you know, they deserve a map. We still need to get back to those. Hundreds and hundreds of sinks, and some of these sinks are big, you know, 100+ feet across. You know, really nice looking sinks. We walked down, no obvious opening at the bottom of the sink, so we just moved on. We GPSed it, boom, we move on. There's too many other things to do. But someday we'll go down there and poke around with a bar and move some rocks and see if it actually opens up into something. And like I say, that's just, you know, future work for another time. So all this work, we've only surveyed 4,500 meters, so you can divide that by 107 basically, and you get the fact that, you know, the caves are on the small side. Just for fun, I decided to look at the GPS data, and the highest cave is somewhere over 8,000 feet. I mean, actual cave. And the lowest one is about 4,000. So there's a pretty big range of elevation we're working in here. I made 17 trips. I started in January 97. Mapping trips. The first trip I made was in 96, and that was strictly a bat trip when I was working for Bat Conservation International. We went down to help a local researcher do the work with the Leptonicterus in Inferno de la Camatera, because he wasn't a caver and he wasn't vertical. So we went to help on that, and have been going back ever since. Quite a few cavers have participated from all over the place, even other countries. The first time my kid was there was when he was 3. He actually found a cave, which we named Kras's Bug Cave. Yeah, my kid is named Kras, which means karst in Slovenian. So he likes it. So I don't know when our next trip is. Probably this fall sometime. I'm thinking, September, maybe winter, maybe Thanksgiving. That may, September may be optimistic. So we get enough people that have all had their shots and everything, and we head down to see what the forest fires have done and map some more caves. So that's the goal. So this is a shout out to my boy. I gotta put cute kid pictures in here. Yes, he knows how to use a hammer drill. He's been doing that a lot when he was 3. And this is him in his cave that he found. He's quite excited. He will sit there and talk to you for an hour about the things in a cave, stalactites, stalagmites, all the bugs and other critters, et cetera, et cetera. He's good. So this is sort of a logo, if you will. We actually got stickers made. This is the sticker art. Here's the website, which is sadly out of date. And we've got a Facebook page, which is much more current because it's easier to post to Facebook than to websites. You all are welcome to come sometime if you want. Josh has been telling me for a while that he's going to make it. And he says, by hell or high water, one of these days he'll get there. So
I get my second shot next week.
Yeah, I get mine in about a month. So I'm looking forward to it.
What,
So that's it, guys. Cavers are welcome. I hope you got, you enjoyed it. I don't know if there's any questions. If anybody wanted to ask anything, I just kept rambling.
Can I give you my endorsement?
Yeah, Rachel, you can give me your endorsement.
So I've done this like technically 2.5 times because one of the trips in the middle was a research bat trip that I was on, but it collaborated with Crash. Anyway, so y'all, like, I kind of used this as my break into like applying later on to like Watla and whatnot. So like this is a awesome, very tame, very friendly, like, I mean, obviously Crash brings his 3-year-old, like very chill, super safe area, like introduction to international expeditions. And also like if you're just really into hiking, it's like some of the most beautiful hiking I've ever done in my life. And I've lived in Colorado and, whatever. It is like, I took that photo. Actually, we just pulled over on the side of the road and at dusk, and it's like, oh yeah, here's the normal views. And last time I was there in March of 2019, we backpacked out to La Camatera, which was like just an all-day hike.
That was when we had the hailstorm and all the horrible weather.
Yeah, and the roads were too, or no, I can't remember if the roads were too washed out or if it was just because you were stuck busy with the kid and all that. But anyway, like, yeah, we've done some backpacking stuff out there. We're always poking little virgin, small, pits and whatnot. It's pretty like kind of just go wander around and find something. But yeah, like it's a hell of a good expedition. And like everyone that's not in Texas, you just like fly into Austin, camp in Crash's backyard, and then carpool down with the caravan. Or if you want to drive down yourself, add 12 hours. But it's like we get there in a day, and then we like hit the grocery store. Oh, Crash, you didn't include the Thanksgiving dinner pictures.
No, I didn't include any of the. I have hundreds of food pictures.
You eat like a king on these expeditions.
We do well, but I call these trips down to these mapping trips, I call them Expedition Light.
Yeah,
and Rachel's right. It is a good introduction to being in a foreign country and crossing the border and doing a lot of these things without like the intensity of a Cheve or a Watla trip.
Yeah, and it's something that's friendly enough that like bringing a kid is not a huge deal. Obviously they got to probably not be me at age 3, because me at age 30 got in trouble at least once in Laguna. But it's a hell of a lot of fun. And like you didn't y'all find a bunch of stuff on the last one that y'all like actually needed some like slightly more serious vertical folks on it? I mean, not like Alpine Watla level serious, but like just people who are like on ropes.
I mean, everybody needs to have vertical skills. I mean, like I said, almost every cave down there has some vertical component in it. So if you don't have vertical skills, you shouldn't bother coming unless you have some other awesome skills to offer.
Oh, they can hike.
Well, you know, we've got, I mean, so right now we're kind of far ahead of the hiking and ridge walking. We're trying to catch up on the mapping parts. But yeah, it's a great place to go, and it's super friendly, and the people are super nice. We don't have to go through tons of official permissions or anything.
Yeah, and just traveling, because I know like tag folks, y'all aren't, you know, nearly as probably familiar as like going across the border as all of us who grew up in Texas, but like traveling, you know, you're not like going through any major cities. We bypass Monterey entirely by just staying on the toll road. So it's not like you're kind of like worrying about, you know, local cops extorting you. Like it's very, very, like I said, I've been down 3 times, never once you know, felt like I was unsafe. We'll go walking around the town in the evening. The town itself is just like a tiny little mountain town. There's like a taco stand out on the, or like a taco place on the main town square that we like eat all of their food. We've cleaned them out of the apple wine as well before. But yeah, 10 out of 10 would recommend.
What are your requirements to qualify there, Jim, as far as a cave?
Be a good caver and don't be a jerk.
No, the cave itself. The cave itself.
Let's not be a jerk either.
Is it 50 feet? Does it have to be 50 feet, or what's your?
What's our qualifiers?
Yeah.
No, we use Texas standards down there. We use 5 meters. I know, you guys laugh.
It's like a Georgia cave or something.
Yeah,
No,
well,
30 feet.
we have this state park in Texas, Colorado Bend State Park, up along the Colorado River. There's 16,000 acres, something like that, with 200 plus caves in it. And, you know, none of them are really big. There's a couple over a kilometer, but not too many. But there's a lot of them. And I jokingly refer to Texas cavers as the Colorado Bend of Mexico. I mean, it's like, you know, you can hardly throw a rock without hitting a cave. There's a lot of caves. They're just not big.
Yeah. Great hiking. God, awesome hiking. Great biology.
Or mountain biking. You know, there's a lot of city folks are starting to do mountain biking on the trails up there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they've actually posted, there's some websites that list some of the trails and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I looked up the climbing the last time we went there and I was like, oh, it starts at 9. So never mind. All the climbing was way over my head. No pun intended.
Yeah, the Mexico Olympic climbing team actually trains there.
Yeah, it's out at El Salto.
Yeah, El Salto.
Yeah.
But there's still 800-foot walls all over the place that are completely
So
vertical.
cool.
If you're into big wall climbing, you have a portaledge, come do something down there.
I need to go recruit some friends.
All right. Well, we sure appreciate it, Jim. It was a great presentation.
Well, thanks for Josh for inviting me. It's great seeing some of my friends that I've met in the past, and some friends that are just friends on Facebook. And you know, John, Kelly, it's nice seeing you guys. Thanks again. It was fun.
Thanks so much, Crash. That's good.
And keep your eyes on, you know, Facebook and everything. When I do get a trip up, I'll post the information, and anybody wants to come down and join us, feel free. We'd love to have you.
Awesome.
So that's one thing I forgot to do during the regular meeting. Did we have any guests that